I've got that two corresponding angles and one corresponding side are congruent. So I know that whatever acronym I'm going to choose has to involve two angles and one side. So I have to just determine, am I going to use angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side? They both work, so I know the answer to this question is yes, comma, triangles are congruent. I know that because both of these acronyms that involve two congruent angles and one side, that both of these work. But you need to know which one you're going to use. In this case, and how you determine which one to use, it all depends on where is that side located. Like the acronym. Is it in between the two angles, or is it not in between the two angles? And for number one, where is that side located?
Between the two angles.
It is in between the two angles. So yes, these triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. Now that we've added the vertices, we can now write a triangle congruent statement. That's where we have triangle blah 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 is congruent to triangle, making sure that the letter order is matching. So I want someone to please name this top triangle for us. Raise your hand. Chris, how do you go first?
ABC.
ABC. Wonderful. Now, if you didn't name your first triangle ABC, that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that your answer is going to look a little different. But what must be the same with all of our triangle congruent statements is that the letters are matched up appropriately. So in this first triangle here, our first letter is angle A, is A. And I know that angle A in that triangle that I've outlined in green ink is congruent to this angle C in the other triangle. So that's why I know that C must be matched up with A. And then B is corresponding and congruent to angle D. And then the two right angles. Letter order matters. So as long as your A is being matched up with C and B is being matched up with D, your triangle congruent statement is correct. So here's another example of a correct triangle congruent statement. C is matched up with A, and B is matched up with D. B and D. This is an appropriate triangle congruent statement. You only need to write one, but just know that there are more than one correct answer. All it comes down to is the letter ordering, matching up. What I am boxing in green ink, that is the bare minimum on quizzes and tests to get 100% credit on a test or a quiz, on that question. You need to answer it. Determine if the two triangles are congruent or not. Yes or no. You need to answer the question. Then, write a congruent statement. This is a congruent statement. This is a triangle congruent statement. And then justify how you know those triangles are congruent or not. If you're saying yes, then you're either going to write down one of these 5 acronyms. You don't have to write it all out. But if you say yes, then you will be justified by one of these 5 acronyms. If you say no, you need to also explain. You need to tell me why you think there's not enough information to prove that those triangles are congruent. Is it because you have angle, 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 and you know that doesn't work? Is it because you have side, side angle, and you know that doesn't work? Maybe you're only given 2 pieces of information rather than 3, and you simply do not have enough information. But you need to justify it. So this is the bare minimum. Yes or no? How do you know? And then if yes, then write a triangle congruent statement. If you say on a quiz question or test question that there's not enough information to prove that the triangles are congruent, then don't write a congruent statement. I was baffled in the years past when students would say, no, triangles aren't congruent, and so confident with that. And then below that they would write, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DCDA. It's totally contradicting. If you're saying no, the triangles aren't congruent, then don't say yes, the triangles are congruent immediately after that by writing a statement. So if you think that triangles are not congruent, then do not write a congruent statement, because you don't want to state that they are congruent if you think the answer is no. So please make sure that there is consistency in your answer. Moving on down, or no, we'll go over to number 2. Can we add anything to the diagram? Yes, they share this segment here. So I know that that segment is congruent to itself. If I can't add anything else to the diagram, so I'm going to go ahead and label what I have. They share this side, they share this side, and I know that all right angles are congruent. So I have 2 sides and a congruent angle. 2 corresponding incongruent sides and 1 corresponding incongruent angle. Now, you have to choose between these 2 acronyms. They both involve 2 congruent sides and an angle, but it's just all comes down to where is that angle located. In this case, excuse me, where is the angle located with respect to the sides? Is it in between the acronym, or is it the non-included side? It is in between. So this is sufficient information. We know that these 2 triangles are congruent. So I would say, yes, comma, triangles congruent by side angle side. And if there were vertices, then we would write triangle blah 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 is congruent to triangle blah blah. But we don't have those. You can just say, yes, triangles are congruent by side angle side. Moving on down here, can we add, oops, bump the brakes. Number 1 and number 2. What kind of triangles are those? Both of those are right triangles. Did we use HL for either one of those? No. So this is 2 examples where just because you have right triangles does not force you to use HL. You can use any of those theorems. Just HL is just an extra one for right triangles. Okay, so do not get in that habit of seeing a right triangle and automatically writing down HL. That's not the case, obviously. The very first 2 we've ever done together show that that is not the case for right triangles. So, number 3, can we add anything to the diagram? Yes, segment XZ is congruent to itself. I have my 3 pieces of information. I've got my 2 angles, shared side. So I need to determine which acronym I'm going to use. I know it involves 2 A's and an S, but which one? It all comes down to where the side is located. Is the side the included side? Is it in between the 2 angles using this ASA? Or is it the non-included side we know information about in this diagram? And so we would force to be using AAS. Which one is it? ASA. ASA. So I know that these triangles are congruent, so yes, comma, triangles congruent by angle, side, angle. We added the vertices to this, so we need to write an appropriate triangle congruence statement. Rachel, what did you name your first triangle?
ZYX,
ZYX?
Yeah.
So just because you didn't name your first triangle this, that doesn't matter. The letter order matters. So she named the top one, starting at Z, going to Y, come back down to X. So we need to do the same, we need to match the corresponding parts on our second triangle's name. Well, angle Z in this top triangle has 1 arc of congruency, so you need to find the angle that also has 1 arc of congruency in the other triangle that happens to also have the same vertex, Z. So in this case, Z's go together. Then we dropped down, we went along the side here to Y. So we must go along the side to the other vertice, which would be W. And then we end with our last letter, which is X. So whatever name you chose for your first triangle, you need to make sure that Z is matched up with Z, and Y is matched up with W, and X matched up with X. That's all that matters when it comes down to these triangle congruent statements, that your letter order is appropriate. Number 4, can we add anything to this diagram? Yes, they share a segment there. So for both triangles, we have congruent sides and one angle. We have two congruent sides and two congruent angles. Is this sufficient information? If you're saying yes, then what theorem did you use? And does it apply to both triangles? So for here, for the top triangle, we have two congruent sides and then the included angle, the angle that's in between those two sides. However, on the bottom triangle, we know two congruent sides and then the a non-included angle. So we were told three congruent parts. But the issue is, these are not corresponding parts. We have the included angle on one triangle, and then the other triangle we have a non-included angle. So this simply is not enough information. These are not corresponding parts. So what I want you to write is not enough information. I do not want you to write, no, triangles are not congruent. Well, we don't know that. They could be. All we know is that there's simply not enough information. I abbreviated information with info. And since this section is just littered with acronyms, why not add one more, right? So not enough information, we can just write NEI, not enough information. But remember, we always got to explain ourselves in any aspect of life, okay? Unless you're a parent. When you're a parent, you just say, because I said so. That's your freebie. But in all other aspects, you have to explain. You have to explain what's happening. Why are you choosing to write this down as your answer? And an appropriate explanation would be not corresponding parts. Like, these are not corresponding parts with one another. They're congruent, obviously, but they're not corresponding. So we need to write not corresponding parts. Because it's not one of these acronyms, because it's two different acronyms. It's just not corresponding parts. So this is what I would need to see. And if we are claiming that these triangles, if we're saying there's not enough information, then don't write a congruency statement. Just stop there and just leave it be. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't because we don't have the vertices names, but so. Alright, moving down to the next four. We're going to go a little bit faster with these because I think we're starting to get the hang of it. Number 7. Is there anything that we can add to this diagram that we can justify? We can say, hey, this part is congruent to that corresponding part because of this reason. Is there anything we can add? No. They don't share anything. There's no vertical angles. There's nothing. This would be an example where we would simply say, not enough information. Only know two parts. So, answer on a quiz or test that I would expect from you. NEI, not enough information. Only know two parts. You need 3. We know that. Going over to number 8. Can we add anything to this diagram? Number 8. No, they don't share anything. There's no vertical angles. So we're just going to have to figure out what do we have. Well, this side is corresponding to this side with 3 marks. And then we have these two sides that are corresponding with the 2 marks of congruency. And then we have the angles that are corresponding. Is this enough information to prove that these triangles are congruent? No. Why not? These are not corresponding parts. The angles are not corresponding angles. For this one, in the first triangle, angle B, that's the included angle. However, in this triangle, we know something about angle X. That's not the included angle. So this is the exact same as number 4, right? This is exactly